Welcome to the Primal Training podcast. I'm your host, Mamoun Bennani, a holistic fitness and nutrition coach. The goal of this podcast is to bring ancestral wisdom to the modern world by sharing insightful conversations with experts in movement, nutrition, and spirituality. I really hope to provide practical strategies to enhance your lives. Enjoy. Hey, what's up?
Hi, good morning. I'm looking at the glare. Is that okay? The glare on the TV?
Yeah,
Okay.
looks good.
Okay.
It looks
All right.
okay.
Just reflecting onto me. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
All right, thank you. I just
Yes.
I'm teaching a jujitsu class, and then ran home so I could do this. Thank you for your flexibility today about that.
Yeah, no worries. I think that's the best that this bring the best conversations when you're not thinking too much. I mean, like you're in the move and
I plan
uh
not to fall. No.
yeah. Yeah, so I was just quickly introducing you and just talking about the way I was like I have little pieces about what you do, and from the little parts of yourself that I see on Instagram, I can see that there are some things that are similar in the way that I do my coaching, and but for sure I only have like tiny pieces of what you do, and so yeah, I've
Feel
been
the same about you. In looking through your stuff, yeah, there's like little bits and pieces that come out. It's obvious to me that like we could go a lot of different directions.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's the beauty of social media, but at the same time, you can't like you don't get to grasp what really people are about. And yeah, that's what's good about like just having a conversation and seeing what we're up to, and hopefully bringing some value for people to learn maybe something or get inspired. I don't know, but we'll see where it goes.
That's so much of what we're missing too now. I mean, podcasts are so popular. Long form YouTube conversations are surprisingly popular, seemingly most of all to the people who have really popular ones. They're like people
Hmm.
will really sit around and watch people talk for like 3 hours, and it's like, yeah, they really will. I mean, it's just I think there's such a lack of connection for so many people that's like a really, you're right, like you just don't, you can't get the whole person when you're just reading some words or you're just
Hmm.
looking at a photo or something like that. This one little sliver that they decided to share with you, like it can't possibly authentically encapsulate the entire person. At least you just get that little bit closer um,
Yeah,
to what's going
yeah,
on. Yeah,
ex
I think that's why it's so
exactly.
strange for some people to go live. um, I've invited some friends on to do this kind of thing too. That I'm like, you're amazing. We have great conversations all the time, and they're like, oh my god, and then it's great.
Yeah. Well, I think these are the best conversations. I when I first started like putting these lives on podcasts, I would plan a lot, and in like it comes from a good intention because I want to give people like a very good value, like a good return on their investment. Like time, like spending like an hour or two watching people speak is a lot of time, and the like what I've been realizing that the less planned things come naturally, and you actually get so much more uh, truth about the other person, and just like people get way more vulnerable when they're not prepared. And yeah, so I try to have like a little bit of planning just to see what like where we can go, what are the things in common. Obviously I won't like talk to any random person, but um like it could be even a random person, I
Dude,
think.
I've thought
Yeah,
about that. I've definitely thought about going to the park and just being like, you
yeah.
want to you want to sit and talk. I've thought about doing that in a couple ways, at least three different ways across my mind. I haven't done any of them, and maybe like just to share. Like it'd be funny to do like a podcast with like I think I was imagining it could be called like a new friend every day or something like that.
Yeah.
All right, just like because everybody has these stories, and I remember like my grandmother died in a nursing home. She had like advanced stage Alzheimer's and stuff. But I even as a kid, I had to be like 10 or 12 around that time. And I remember having at least enough awareness of seeing all these elderly people in wheelchairs, like lining the halls of this, you know, fairly depressing place that I wasn't totally aware of everything going on for sure. But like just thinking that everybody had so many stories and everybody was 17 once and doing stupid shit. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and often those are the best stories, which is hilarious, you know? Um, and then I've thought about doing, I've run a program a few times that's strictly based on listening called Listen Up. And
Okay.
like the main focus of the first one is just to like sit down with somebody, and my entire job is like, I'm going to listen to you and I'm not going to say anything.
Mm.
And it was an incredible thing, experience. I did it with my friend Colin, and the first round that we did, he ended up, because of personal stuff on my end, he ended up actually doing all of the sessions. And I was like, 40 minutes, we'll give them 40 minutes, figuring nobody would get that far. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody got far. Like just working their own shit out, coming to realizations. And so I've thought about doing that in a park, of like just setting up a booth and being like that meme where it's like the convince me guy, like convince me otherwise,
Yeah.
but like listening. Like, I'll just listen to you, I won't say anything, you know, and like energetically grounding that for a
Oh
person,
yeah.
just its own skill. And then
Yeah.
I've thought of doing it for body work too, like free energy work session. Let's just see what happens. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe maybe that's a nice little encapsulation of intent that for your listeners to describe me a
Yeah.
little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, we're getting there slowly. We're getting there slowly. I really love this idea of just like giving the time and space for people to talk, because when you're having a conversation like two people, um, a lot of times what happens is some people have like a maybe like a higher energy, and like they would go like talk a little bit more, and they would feel anxious, this kind of energy, like they would feel anxious whenever there's a little bit of space and emptiness, and they would try to fill this little spots. But if you tell yourself, okay, I'm just gonna let the space, let an empty space, and the people who are maybe like on the other spectrum of the energy, they 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 need a little bit more of time to speak, and they would
Yeah,
use this space to say what they're feeling or what they're thinking.
I can 100%. You just that's an excellent point. I love that. The first one's sort of easy because I feel like a lot of people relate to that, of like not, I mean, there's so many corollaries to that with having phones and social media. Like we just don't get bored now. We don't
Mm,
let pauses happen. So like from these pauses come creativity though, and come realizations. And in those strict listening sessions, it's got to be near 100% accuracy that it was only after those pauses where they think they ran out of stuff to say, that's like where it's a little awkward, but less awkward because they know I'm not going to say anything, right?
mm-hmm,
Like, that the breakthrough came through, or some shift in perspective came through simply through that interaction. But you're so right on the other side. You made me think of a friend of mine, a dear friend who I've been on group chats with,
mm-hmm,
and like group vocal chats, and I hear it. I hear that like they need a second to jump in. And then if there's another person in the group that's ready to jump in because they're on the other end of the spectrum, this person never says anything because
mm,
they needed that pause to like feel comfortable speaking up.
yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, the dynamics of all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think like we have so many people who are always trying to fill this void? Whenever there's a void in a conversation, you need to put something.
What do I think about that?
Or why? Or
That's a question I would ask them if they were willing to. But that's like, that's such a, you know how, at least in my experience, the stuff that you're most sensitive to somebody asking is the stuff you're the least secure about, right? So like I could see that being like a little too sharp for a lot of people to get that drawn to their attention, unless they're already in a space where they like are consciously seeking self-awareness, right? And that's been
Mhm.
an issue of mine sometimes, of like seeing something in someone and being like, hey, like this would probably be helpful for you to notice about yourself, but maybe it's not my job. That's an ongoing contest in my brain about whether or not, I don't know, whether or not it's necessary to bring stuff up sometimes, because I think that the most helpful thing is often for the person to come naturally to an awareness. And I have
Mm-hmm.
my role in that of like, I noticed it, so I can say something. Is it kind? Is it helpful? There's so many filters that I can break through on that. And especially as I would characterize myself as being a bit um, conflict averse. And it would probably help me to be a little bit more bold sometimes. Jordan Peterson has something about that I'm trying to think of the word for it, but just where he would coach people, and often it was women, but not necessarily, into just being a little bit more outspoken in general.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't know, like, since it's not a great skill of mine, I don't have a lot of nuance in telling like when it's too far and when it's not, and the risk feels really high. So I imagine, like, because if I say something that somebody doesn't want to hear, the fear, of course, is that they're going to hate me, right? Like in the end, if I'm going to like worst case
Mm-hmm.
scenario, they're not going to talk to me anymore. They may lash out at me in a way that feels really uncomfortable, um, if I like poke the wound. And so I imagine that's what people are feeling in those moments, is like, it's just discomfort. I guess literally what they're probably feeling is discomfort, like discomfort with a pause, discomfort with feeling like they're not being entertaining enough, discomfort with
Mm.
like, I'm not going to be interesting if I don't keep it up, like it's a performative level of this stuff. If indeed they are uncomfortable, like there's the other side of it too, where what if they just have so much to say that they're interested in, that they're bubbling over, and that's why they
Yeah.
never right?
Yeah.
And it feels different, but it could kind of look the same in some ways. Does that make
Huh.
sense? I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It does. I think it's a little different perspective than the one that I have. Although I do agree with some parts, like some people would like talk a lot because they need, they have some information they want to share, and they're just driven. But I also like, what I would like to add is how I see it is, we all have some kind of fear of death, of emptiness, and I'm pushing it a little bit too far, but that's the way I see it. Is um, whenever like there's some silence that starts between two people, or any setting, people just become so uncomfortable. They need to like, hey, I'm here, oh, we can talk about this, I can add this and that, and they don't allow the time to like just breathe and be with whatever thought you have, um and not necessarily like always be in this give and like this active moving thing, and just slow things down. I feel like a lot of people are afraid to slow down just because of the way we're living today, and we people like you see that all the time, like people waiting for the bus on their phone, even though it's gonna last like a minute or two, or everywhere, like we need to fill these empty spaces because it's so uncomfortable not doing anything that's not purposeful, and not having um, any end results. But yeah, I think that's how I see it for some parts. But I'm not saying that for everyone who's avoiding like this empty moments.
Well, for sure. Like I don't think you're wrong to point out that fear of death is at the root of an awful lot of stuff. Like if you keep going and you keep asking the question, and you're like, what are you afraid of? Well, I'm afraid somebody will be mad at me. And then and like, why are you afraid of that? Because if they're mad at me, then I won't be their friend anymore. And why are you afraid of that? Then I'm not going to have a tribe. Then da da da, and then died.
Mm.
Like, like 6 steps removed maybe from like, or I guess what people would yeah, like loneliness being equated with death.
Mm-hmm.
Because in a primal sense, yeah, there's not a lot of humans that could survive on their own. Like, you could, like much less thrive, even though a lot of people like to convince themselves that they can. And it's not for me to say whether or not somebody truly does love being alone more.
Mm.
It just seems like most of the time they would rather be around people that they resonated with, you know?
Mm.
Um, and that their level of comfort with not finding that can vary. What would you recommend, or what do you recommend people do with that, with like the compulsive phone checking, or like you mentioned the bus stop example? Like,
Yeah, it's tough because I think we all struggle with some, like partially, like some people struggle with it more than others, and hmm, it's a good question. Um, I think it would be like more a little bit watching what's happening to you, and watching whatever emotion that arise during this phone check-in, or whenever you're having this urge, this compulsive feeling to do something because you feel uncomfortable and I need to be doing all the time. And just like observing, like what first, when does it happen, um, and what are the emotions that are associated with them. And like really, when I say emotions, like not necessarily putting words and saying, I mean, you can use words, but it's also like important to listen to where in your body they happen, and really feel them, like feel like you can feel like the whatever color or energy, or just just imagine them, like close your eyes and imagine how does it feel like. And um, just the fact that you're stopping and trying to feel this energy, you already stopped. You're not in the, you're not in the feeling anymore. You're stopping and you're listening. That, I think that would be like the very first step. Not trying to stop it. Like it is gonna happen and it's gonna come back whenever you feel uncomfortable. You will want to check your phone, or just fill the void. But if you tell yourself, okay, I'm gonna just stop for a second and see like what's going on, what are this chemistry or thing that's happening in me, and recognize them, and kind of like you know, there's a saying, like you should, like instead of like running away from your demons, try to get to know the names. Like who are they? Like let get comfortable with them, and imagine them, give them names, give them faces, and they get way less scary when you're like a little bit closer to them. And I think that would be the second step, is just like getting to know them, and like have them, like put them in different cases. Like this is the one thing that happens when I'm, I don't know, when I'm stressed to go to work, or this happens whenever I have a phone call because I'm anxious, or this happens. And once you, I think that the next steps are a little bit out of my scope, because this is something that I struggle with as well. I'm able to kind of differentiate these demons, so to say, but it's like, I think it's part of my journey of trying to find the next steps that come after this, and that's like an open thing what I'm still working on. But that's what I would stop in my thinking, like that would be like the end of my answer to this question.
that's awesome. What do you, just curious, what do you think of your answer?
What do I think of what? Sorry.
Of your answer?
Huh. I don't know. I don't know. I would say
What color is it?
I see a lot of blue. I see a lot of blue. Well, I think especially when it comes to like when I'm a little bit more anxious, they're most of the time like blue that goes to the dark. Um,
I
and
mean, just a reflection. I felt like you were pretty happy with your answer. Do you feel like you were?
Yeah, I
Like,
am. I am. Yeah.
gotcha. Yeah, just
Yeah.
letting you do that. Like,
Yeah. I
just
really
get
am.
happy.
I
Make
think,
it all up for yourself.
yeah, I Yeah, I am happy with my answer, and I know that I kind of like when you ask me the question, I know what I'm stuck, where in the process I'm stuck, and it's like a lifelong, it's
Well,
a
you
lifelong
tapped
search.
into to so many good things there, like about like and it was, I mean, it's also beautiful that you were like thinking through it like live, you know, like like it didn't sound like you'd answered, if you have answered that question before, it didn't seem to me like it was in exactly the same way or like it was rehearsed at all. Like it seemed like you were like, yeah, and then this thing and then that thing, like it just to touch, like you touched on so many really helpful points, like, well, fear of the unknown being a big part of
Mm,
it, right? Like, or fear of discomfort, and like, you know, he didn't say it exactly, but catastrophizing, kind of back to the death thing of like what will happen if this thing, but it's really fear of the unknown. So you were like, okay, what if I get more information about that with the, you know, getting to know your demons better, inviting them to tea, you know, and
right.
having this sort of thing. The and then pattern recognition was a like a huge part of that. Like, okay, once I get aware, like, and also imagination, like, and speaking to that about imagination not always being like effortful, but sometimes sort of like, I don't know, like dipping in your toe into what's already there and just
Hmm.
allowing it to be. Like that's what that kind of stuff feels to me. I feel like creative, I'm trying to create something, feels different and it's energizing in a different way. And if to me it feels energizing to like try to create a painting or try to create a model clay something or whatever like that, like in a regular art sense, but being like, what does your anxiety feel like? What does it look like? Is just kind of like, oh, you know, I can just allow that to happen and maybe blue comes up or something. And then if you want, you can go Google, like, what does blue mean? You know,
Yeah.
or you can just let it be blue, or you can let it be like, you know, falling down a hill or whatever the heck comes into your brain that you was there the whole time, perhaps, and you just never stopped to look at. Um, I love that. And just, it made, in saying this, it just made me think about, I had one time, it was weird. For some reason, I remember I was walking along these like abandoned train tracks with my dog. I was like just exploring places, and I had something going on, and it's hilarious because I don't even remember what it was, but I was contemplating fear a lot at the time, and so I was like, let me take this to visualization. Let me see what happens
Hmm.
if I imagine doing just what you said. Imagine sitting down at a table with fear. Like if fear was embodied in some way, what would it
Hmm.
look like? And the image that popped into my head was that um, was of me sitting at a table and like looking across it, and the as soon as I looked across, like the mirror just flipped right back to me. Like it was like I couldn't actually focus; it just kept looking back at me. And the
Uh-huh.
lesson that I got from that, which was like a felt knowing kind of thing, was like fear isn't real. Like it wasn't like a real thing; it all just comes back to me
Oh my God.
and something in. And I was like, okay. Cool, whatever. You know, is that going to be that way forever?
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'd say now that I always think that fear isn't real, but it's something that I can, I have a feeling of that memory that I can revisit and be like, oh, okay, like,
That's fear.
is that true for me right now? Like, maybe.
Oh my God.
And with,
This like 2 nights ago, I had a dream and really, really similar. And that's why I'm like
oh, cool,
yeah.
cool. Bring it. What happened?
Yeah. So yeah, like I've been really tired like for the last days. So I took like a week off where I'm just like focusing, like no more training. I'm not training, and I wanna know what's like what are the things that are happening that I
Create the
can't.
space. Yeah.
Yeah, I try to create the space. So I'm used to dreaming a lot. I do a lot of lucid dreamings, and what happens whenever I have a lucid dream, I would freak out after, like shortly after it starts. I realize that I'm like somewhere flying around the house, and I'm like, snap! This is scary. I need to get out of it, and bam! I just wake up. And what happens 2 days ago? So I started having this lucid dream. So I'm here.
Is it intentional for you when you lucid dream, or are you saying it just kind of happens?
It happens
Like I
naturally.
know some people like plan it, but
No, no. I tried to plan it like a few years back, and it was really scary again. I was like, no,
yeah.
I'm not ready for it yet. But it happens like pretty often and naturally. And so I was just flying around the house, and then I was like, snap, I think I'm dreaming now. And I started to realize, and what happens is like you have this weird, I don't know if it happened to you, but you have this weird mix of conscious and unconscious, and you're like conscious in your dream, and it's scary.
Makes me
So
wonder if it's like another dimension or something like that. Like, are you
I,
actually existing there? Is this just another aspect of you? I don't know. Like,
yeah, probably. And that's really the scary part of like I'm looking around and I know I'm like I'm aware of what's happening and I'm not like you have this different feeling when you're dreaming because like you just can't remember, but this is like so real and I'm there. I can decide what I can do. Um and it started like I felt the anxiety and the fear. Like I think I don't know why, but today like the theme of fear is coming back. But yeah,
I've had
good little
so many crazy dreams recently. Yeah, this is a cool topic.
yeah. That's cool. So yeah, I was there and I'm just like going around the house. I see our cat. And this is not the first time I dream of my cat. And he was looking
Okay.
at me. Yeah, he was looking at me. He has like big eyes and he was looking at me and I can see a huge third eye on his forehead.
Okay.
And it was like so I don't know why, but it was scary when I saw that. And what happens, we were both
Where
absorbing
do
each
you
other.
feel that in your body right now when you remember that?
Um I would feel it here, like like yeah, like right below my chest and in my stomach. So yeah, just seeing it, and we started kind of absorbing each other. And as the mirror, you were saying, I at a point I didn't know if I was me or the cat, and that's super weird. So we were just like kind of absorbing each other, and I was just like scared to hell. I'm like I'm gonna disappear. I don't know where I'm going. I'm just like whoop. And at the same time, I was standing watching what's happening. And I was talking to my girlfriend. I was telling her, see, look, that's why I'm afraid. That's my biggest fear is, and I was saying it's like fear of dissolving.
Disillusion of self.
Yeah. And in the communication, I was talking to her and I was telling her, in order to communicate with anybody, um, you can't be yourself. You have to become the other person. And that's like, and the other person needs to become you, and you need to be just one person. And as long as you don't apply this to your life, you're just going to be projecting your ego on the wall and pretending that you're communicating or that you're being, but you're just like, um, just putting your ego out there and not really having like any genuine discussion or communication. And I was like, and it just like blew my mind. I woke up, I was crying. I was like, I don't know, this is like overwhelming. This is too much. But I think, like speaking of fear, I think that's I was feeling this fear uh, of like you were saying what were the word you were using? Dissolution.
Disillusion of self. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my fear, and I was feeling that was my fear and everyone's fear, and I was feeling like that everyone had the same fear and just feeling it throughout my body. I was like, this is this is like too much, too overwhelming. But at the same time, I was happy. Like I was so grateful to feel in someone's something so intense. Um, but yeah, just reminded me of the
You
mirror.
feel the collective fear, like of
Yeah,
everything.
yeah, yeah.
And and the ironic thing is like if as soon as you like resist that, like it sticks. And like if you just kind of like let it go, it kind of like can whoosh like all the
Yeah,
way through you. And that's the thing with like feeling and emotion and all that stuff of when you were talking about the conversation thing that you were having the conversation with your girlfriend and like about what people are afraid of. It's yeah, it's like the fear of losing a little piece of myself if I allow this interaction to change me. Does that sound kind of like
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
talking about. But like every interaction changes me. You know, if we're really, you know, getting down to it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, whether that's the research being done on like exosomes and stuff, and like me breathing your air helps strengthen my immune system
Mm-hmm.
ironically, you know, with everything going on, and like we're exchanging DNA information and all this stuff to allow a more biodiverse system that and more neurodiverse system, and then you can extrapolate. I can extrapolate that to like the fear of idea exchange that's so prevalent right now. Of like I have my ideas and you have yours, and like we just can't see each other's because of like if I break this down, what is that going to mean for me? Um,
Mm.
and it's amazing that it like came through so strong for you, and even in relationship, right? Like I you know, I'm in my most serious relationship I've ever been in, and in a stage in my life I've never been in, obviously too, just because
Mm-hmm.
of the way things go and linear time or whatever. It's like, wow, there's parts of me that are dying and I don't like that. You know, in the creation of a new thing, and it
Yeah.
can be so hard. I feel like we all need to hold like regular grief ceremonies for ourselves, even if that's just like in the form of meditating and letting things be, letting the feelings come through without trying to resist them, and being like, or like, if it's possible to touch into that appreciation side of, like you said, you're grateful of like being able to feel that, like something so intense. Like, is there something to appreciate in death and life, in the exchange of what's going on, and just the beauty that is sensation of like physically being able to feel that stuff. Um,
Oh yeah. Amen.
what would you say is your relationship to fear now? I mean, take that question any way you want.
Mm, yeah. Um, I think so. I think this dream helped me a lot because, like, I mean, the day after, I was in fear the whole day. I was just like trying to digest everything, and it was really really heavy.
This was
Uh,
after you took like a week off. This is like,
yeah, during my week.
yeah.
So this is actually my week. I'm like quickly recovering from what's happening this week, but it was like so heavy, and I needed to like take a rest. And I've been
Dude, this week
going.
has been crazy for me too.
Hmm?
Something's going on.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I don't know why. You're not the only person. I think there's something that's like cooking that's working the last days. Um, but yeah, I've been avoiding a lot of fears for for way too long actually, and I was mentioning it in another live discussion that I had, that for a long time I thought of myself as a stoic, and I'm okay. I mean, I don't feel much, and I'm okay with it, and I live like I thought that my life was perfect. Like
This
I'm
is
not
great.
yeah, I'm not affected by anything, and I thought it was like a strength, and I would like always talk about the fact that I'm okay with it. I can like whether I win or I lose or I gain or I'm like everything was okay. I'm feeling okay, and nothing like really bothers me. Um, and I'm not saying that being stoic is a bad thing. It's a good thing when you're actually okay with your demons. But when you're stoic because you're fearing your demons, that's another story. And that's what I was doing. I was using it as a cover up for
Wow.
not dealing with my shit, and
Wow.
that it's been following me, and so I've been working on my intuition and working on myself for the last year or two, and I've started having a lot of emotion come in and experimenting new things and trying to identify what is this, what is that, and because I couldn't deal with not having like genuine relationship with people anymore. It was like starting in my relationship with my girlfriend, with people around me, and I wanted to look for. I wanted relationships where I'm most vulnerable and being myself, and I had to do something about it. So you have to go and meet these demons and work on your fears. And I think the work, like, in my dreams has been like so powerful. And here's one thing that happened. So before having this dream that I just told you about, I had like for maybe like a few weeks, what I would start having this kind of beginning of the same dream, sort of say. And like when I started, I was telling you about having like these lucid dreams, and I would snap out. Nope, nope, not today, not today, not today. And when it happened today, though, 2 days ago, I just felt that I couldn't go anywhere. I was stuck, and I couldn't. I felt like I couldn't get out of my bed. And I mean,
Which
I
is
can.
scary in and of itself. Yeah.
Mhm.
Which is scary too. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I
yeah.
think I was scared, but for some reason, it had to be dealt with that day. And I was like, just imagine, I can't say voices or like in the dream. It's not really a voice, it's not really written, but just like the feeling that I was being told that it's a kind of initiations and there's nowhere I can go. And this is like, it's been too long. Like I've been like, uh, flying away for too long, and this has to happen. I was like, okay, I'm just like going through everything. And then when I woke up, even when I woke up, I couldn't get out of my bed. I was like awake and still having like images. I'm like, holy shit, what's going on? And yeah, I think it's so the fact that, to answer your question, it has to be dealt with that day. And during the day, I was scared to hell. But then one thing that helped me go through it and helped me deal better with my fears is telling myself. There's a saying in the Quran that goes by, I can't say it like word by word, but it goes by that God only gives you the way
What
that
you
you
can
can,
handle.
what you can handle. You know that?
I'm just
Yeah.
that's come up recently too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, yeah, and I was questioning myself, like, why am I? You know, sometimes you know something and you'd rather not know it, and you get a knowledge, and you're like, I don't want to know it. It's like too heavy to carry. But for me, it was more of like, if I knew that tonight, and if I went through the whole thing, and I came with all this information, means that I'm capable, and I can carry this weight, and I can go on. And
Imagine going through life with that belief like really firmly implanted in you. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
I think
There's a
that's
shadow side to everything, but that's a pretty good one to like
yeah,
be like, okay, because you might put yourself in positions you don't even like because you're like, I can handle it, you know. But like, I'm just going with the
yeah,
positive that.
yeah. I think it's a powerful thing to have with you at all time. Like you're not given. I mean, I like making it sound beautiful, and I'm not saying that all hardships are easy, or but I think that we can handle our hardships, and they're not here just like this. They're here for a reason, and like having this firm belief that you can carry this weight. It can help a lot. And
Well, I
I'm
would argue that the hardship is often sourced from the belief that we can't handle what's happening. You know, like that's why it's hard. Is that perspective that like
mm,
I'm not going to make it.
yeah,
So like just that in of itself takes away a lot of that. Like maybe you don't know how, but you have a faith that, well, it wouldn't have come up if I wasn't capable of dealing with it. So yeah.
mm-hmm,
And we're so creative because I'm like, part of me is coming up with like all the ways that could get twisted in of itself. Be like, people not asking for help is a big thing. Be like, well, you know, so you can conflate that into, well, it came up for me, so I can handle it, so I'm not even gonna like ask for help or something like that.
mm-hmm.
I think is a big problem for a lot of people too. You know, it can be another reason to hang on to your fear in a way, or to your things. We can use anything as justification. It's just like you said with the stoicism stuff. Like that was a beautifully self-aware description of how that came up for you, and it probably did make you feel strong at the time, and like that was an important step in your life, and it's great. And
Mm-hmm.
then you had a different realization about the way things go, and um, yeah, man.
Yeah. I think from here, like we all have some kind of heroic journey. Um,
I saw you posted that Joseph Campbell thing, which I haven't read that. I have
you
his
have,
Power book, but I haven't
yeah,
got Hero's Journey.
but
But people talk about it all the time, though.
yeah, it's great. It's great. Yeah, you're most probably familiar with it. Um, but yeah, that's what brings to like talking of
Not a
hardships.
lot. It just comes up on a lot of podcasts I listen to and stuff. Like I have a general idea that it's like going away and returning home. Stuff
Hmm.
happens in the middle.
Yeah,
So whatever, you know.
I think it's it is pretty straightforward. That we all kind of go through the same cycle, and we first get our mission that we refuse, and that's a sign that that's the mission for you. Most of biggest missions, and when like Joseph Campbell talks about a lot of myths and prophets, and through many religions, and what he says that most prophets refuse their mission. They're like, that's too big for me, that's too much to handle, I'm not going to take it. And you see that in Hollywood movies, and many heroes that would refuse their mission. And so they would refuse until they can't anymore. And then it's like, whew, I gotta take it. It's like their people are dying, or someone in their family passed away, or something big that would trigger them to like go pursue their mission. And once they accept it, for sure they would go through many hardships, meet like people on their sides, people that are against them, and go throughout like a whole cycle until the end, where they come back. And what happens is that they either decide to stay there in their illuminated state, and they just want to not just like stay as a wise man, and like more like separated from society, or they decide to help other people. And that's like when they go and help other people, they would go start another cycle, because they're gonna initiate someone else to go through the same journey. And I feel that most people, not most people, everyone go through it. And mostly when you teach people, or you're a coach, and you have something to teach, you have something to share with other people, and you went through many hardships, I assume. Um, can you maybe like share a little bit of your heroic journey, like what you think was something like your call for adventure, or call for like what your mission was handed to you?
I'm in a big upheaval now. I would say previously, even prior to like literally like 2 weeks ago, I probably
Mm-hmm.
would have, you know, it's still an influence on me. I can point to seeing my members of my family, uh, just in summary, not doing what they wanted to do in life, and like what that did to them. You know, I guess really the refusal of taking on the mission, to put it in that heroic framework
Mm-hmm.
of being like, well, you know, this is fine. And it's so, if I often feel like I'm speaking against logic or reason, and I don't mean to, but to me, the most logical thing to do is to follow feeling and what you're feeling, and that draw. Like, you can't explain the pull to that heroic journey. Like, it doesn't make sense, or logic eventually takes over and pushes you over that edge, like you said. Like, they refuse it, they hear it, but they refuse it
Mm-hmm.
until people are dying, and then it's like, oh, okay, now I can use logic in service of the
Yeah.
thing I've been feeling this whole time,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, well, it's also, to me, it's also possible that maybe like all those people didn't have to die. Like,
Mm.
you could have just listened to the journey. But whatever, like, I don't need to shame that either. It's like, whatever, it happens, it happens. But I think I think the resistance to following what feels right creates a lot of pain. So like, I'm, you know, intending of starting a course the 24th, on decision making stuff. But it's starting out, it's like, can you even feel your body? Can you even feel stuff?
Mm-hmm.
So getting back to your question though, like before you even use it to make decisions, like can you feel anything? And the cool thing is you can develop feeling, as you've learned. Like you can learn how to feel stuff. And the first thing is believing that that's possible. But like between neurology and imagery and all the stuff and like finding evidence about how you actually feel things now anyway, even if you think you don't, like, you know, like, and expanding on those beliefs and all that stuff, like then you can get into like noticing exactly what you described about like every time I do this, I feel this way, or I start to notice a pattern in this stuff. And like, once you recognize the pattern, it becomes easier to break it, all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm at now, that's really fascinating to me is like, so I've had this idea for, I don't even know how many years that like, I'm going to do what I want. And that's most important to me. I'm going to do what feels right.
Mm-hmm.
Stoicism was a little bit of the beginning of that for me too, of like listening actually to an audiobook of Marcus Aurelius meditations and being like, oh, this makes sense. Like,
Mm-hmm.
cool. Like this is the closest thing to like a religion that I've like resonated with
Yeah.
personally, which I've never done any deep dives into religion, but um, so I spent all this time, like I never went to college because I didn't want to. So it was like, why would I do that? You know, I'm going to go do other stuff and, you know, followed these things around and had a lot of life happening to me and, you know, making decisions that weren't about what I wanted to do, but just because it seemed like an opportunity. And that did lead to some hardship because I wasn't acting from a place of like true desire. I was like, just taking jobs that were offered to me because it's just like, well, cool, I guess I'll do that now.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really stressed about it and like didn't listen to my stress at all. And um, eventually leading me down to, I guess I'll just cut to the realization I had a couple weeks ago. Like my mom was not a stay-at-home mom. My dad stayed at home. And um, I'm pretty sure that it was because like she was just making more money when they decided to have kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like a logical thing for her to do. And I've always, for a few years, I've kind of thought about that as being something that was like, well, you know, that was probably hard for her because she's the one that really wanted to have kids. And then she didn't stay at home with them. So like there's a split there. Like there's a schism in a person's soul, I think. Like
Mm-hmm.
especially for something that deep and meaningful as children. And I always thought about what that meant to her. And I, until just now, I didn't think about how that might have affected me as a kid. And this is why I'm on a completely new journey, in my opinion, because I've spent the last, I don't know, 6 to 8 years being obsessed with helping people. I mean, like, I'm going to help people. I'm going to learn stuff to help people. All my books on my shelf are primarily to help people. And yeah, I filtered it through, like, how could I help myself with this too? But it was really like, I'm going to help other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I went on a Vipassana meditation, which is a 10-day silent meditation retreat. It's
Right.
based in Buddhist theology and stuff. And they're like just asking you to sit with things. And these thoughts are going through my head. I was just like constantly like using the course to like rewrite courses that I could use to help people. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
I never thought of any of it as bad because who thinks it's bad to help people? Like,
Right.
and it was a fucking compensation for my life that I
Mm-hmm.
just tied back to my mom not being at home. And I put a lot of thought into this because I was like, am I just making this up? Am I trying to like draw some conclusions that like people kind of say? Or I was like, nah, this like feels real. That like my answer to wanting more attention from her was like to become helpful, like was to be something that you know was somebody that was useful around the house that would get attention for being smart or artistic or like all these things, like you know where some kids become bad kids and that gets them attention because to a kid it's just attention, like you don't care, you just need
Yeah.
attention
Yeah.
like because you'll die if you don't. So like your little subconscious brain will just figure it out, and mine figured it out with that. And there were a lot of strings that came together really rapidly in the past couple weeks that like led me to being like I was like, oh my god, like my obsession with helping people has been based out of insecurity this whole time. and my relationship I wish I had with my mom. And she died in 2012, so now I can just communicate with her like spiritually.
Mm.
So I'm at a blank slate at the moment of like letting that go. Just and to me, it felt like I let go of it in a tremendous way simply by tracing it back and acknowledging it, that was what was motivating me, was that fear of not being helpful. um it stopped me from like having relationships with like mentors and people that could help me along because I'm not helpful to them, right?
Mm.
Quote unquote.
Yeah.
At least in my, it wasn't helpful enough in my perspective. So I would
Mm-hmm.
just like get kind of afraid and like not really know what to do and not really be myself. But like people that I can help, hell yeah, like let me
Mm.
come. And
Yeah.
it sounds creepy to me now. But once I acknowledged that, it felt like I had like my fist clenched all this time, and I let it go. And a tension that I didn't know I was carrying about that need to be the helpful person is just gone now. And now I don't even know who I am in some respects, and it's really interesting. You
Yeah.
know, like is the best word I have for it. Like I could say fear, I could say cool, like I can spin it any way I want, but like interesting kind of covers a nice gamut of it, and I don't really know what's going to come in from that. I feel like I'm in a spot of sort of waiting too, of like, all right, let me try to create some space and see what comes through the door and focus on the couple things that I am really sure of
Mm.
while my entire inside rearranges itself
Yeah.
into new understanding of life and life's purpose. So I guess I'm kind of trying to, I'm personally focusing on truly doing stuff for me now instead of like, this will be helpful. I got to post it on Instagram. This will be helpful. And I'm like, like, what if I just do stuff for me and like write to myself? And a friend told me a story about the woman that wrote Eat, Pray, Love went on Marie Forleo's podcast. And I don't really follow either of those people, but she was, very popular book, made into a movie, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that the woman was just reflecting that it worked because she was writing it for herself. And I don't know
Mm.
if that means that what people need to hear for themselves, but at this stage in my life right now, that's really hitting somewhere where I'm like, okay, what if I really focus on doing stuff for myself and let a lot of other things fall away about what I'm stressing out about?
Mm.
I don't know. And I guess I'm just going to see what happens. So I don't even know. Maybe that's not true, but it just feels effective to say that I don't know who I am right now, and I'm kind of like finding that out.
Yeah. I love it. And it's so good to like when you were sharing about like how sometimes it's so much more effective to whenever you build something like things that you give to your clients or people around you, and when you do it for yourself, I find there's there's a different intention in there compared to when you do it for other people. I feel when you do it for yourself, you know the complexity and the details. You put a lot of details and complexity for the things that you do for yourself. Just, um, I mean, just because of the proximity and the level of which you know yourself, and having something that you would share after with no intention of having anything in return. Just okay, I'm gonna work on myself, and this is really working for me, and I'm putting it out there for people to maybe try or try it for themselves and see how it goes. I think it's so much more powerful than try to estimate and have maybe like ideas of what can work for other people. I don't know if it makes sense, but it's yeah, it's something that I slowly learned, that there's so much more to gain from working really on yourself, and then as you're saying, just like not caring about anything in return. I'm just okay. Look, I did it. It worked. These are the benefits. and this is what I lost, and it's okay. I'm just putting it out there. Do whatever you want to do with it, rather than buy my 30 days program now. It works for everybody.
Well,
So
I'm totally cool with making as much money as possible and like letting stuff come in that sense. Like I don't feel a need to like give stuff away per se. I think that maybe I did more before. Um, but there's like a little when I there's a little bitter taste in my mouth when I think about coming from like trying to help other people or like needing to help other people with it, like an attachment. It's like I don't know. It's sort of like maybe I was constantly telling people something was wrong with them and they had to change, and
mm,
that's a way different energy
mm,
than sharing from my own story. And I'm sure you probably know a lot of people in like the fitness world and rehab world and natural and all this stuff too that came to it from their own story
mm-hmm,
of like and you're right, like it's totally different if you know you had chronic pain and you did all this research and that's how you figured out how to get yourself out of it and now you're
mm-hmm,
sharing um is really different than the lens of like, oh, this seems interesting, I'm just gonna like bop around and do it. Not that that's wrong, it's just it's different. um and I don't know that that's my journey now. So at the moment it's like, well, how am I helping myself the most? And to me that's spiritual connection, learning and relearning communication all the time, you know. Focusing on sensory awareness, um, that's stuff that I feel really good about is positively enriching my life, um, is letting that stuff come through. So I don't know, maybe that'll turn into a book, maybe that'll turn into like my next coaching projects, like, and it doesn't totally change everything, like all the stuff that I've learned along the way um, certainly informs who I am now, and it's cool and it's all stuff I was interested in because I refuse to like look into anything that I'm not at least interested in. Like that's why
mm,
that's the story I tell myself about why I like couldn't go to school. So I was like, I just can't do prerequisite courses for stuff that I don't give two flying fucks about. Like, like, or like told to do stuff that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I'm gonna go research. There's too much information out there
mm,
for me not to do research on my own and find my own mentors and stuff, which I did through, functional range conditioning and the Vipassana course and all these different ends that sort of really do tie back to just sensory and trusting oneself and learning how to make yourself trust yourself, you know, all these things like getting purchase into my stuff, which is uh, my previous Instagram handle before this one I had briefly was the body awareness coach. And I was
mm-hmm,
like, okay, cool. Like that actually explains way better what I've been trying to say I do with people. Um, but also like, why does anybody care about body awareness unless you already know you're pursuing body awareness? And I was like, well, really, I'm trying to help people make decisions better using body awareness. So like, let's try this now, and just see what happens. And then since then, I've just had all these epiphanies and crazy dreams, and I've had my first tastes of lucid dreams. I
mm-hmm,
didn't, it wasn't planned or anything for me either, but I noticed later I was doing a pretty good job of like journaling my dreams when I woke up, and I remembered a lot of details and I had a really vivid colors and some specific numbers that were like delivered very pointedly in the dreams, like repeated this kind of stuff. And so I was writing stuff down and I
mm-hmm,
realized that I was like, oh, like there was somewhere, just like you said, where like that unconscious and conscious sort of blended just a little bit in a
mm-hmm.
weird way. For me, it was just
Right.
like thinking through a thing.
Yeah.
Of like I was trying to figure something out in the dream and I was kind of messing it up, and then like something blended in there of like, oh, I can do this, and it was like that was different. I don't know what that was, and I don't know where that's going either, but it was cool. I was like, oh.
I think
I've
I
talked to
think
I talked to a few people about that have talked about having dreams where they were trying to control it,
mhm.
and like it doesn't. My theory, I haven't done any research into this, is that doesn't really work when you try to control it. Like it seems like it needs to be a blend of like allowing and being in there. What do you think about
uh
that?
from my experience, Um, it really depends on the state of mind that you have. Maybe like how do you feel before dreaming? And it's kind of I haven't done any drugs per se. But I have a deep connection to what drugs and psychedelics can feel like.
I hear
For
you,
some
man.
Yeah, for some reason I can totally imagine. I've heard so many stories, and I can totally imagine how it feels like. But it's like a lucid dreaming is it's gonna amplify how you feel before going into lucid dreaming, and so if you feel, and also it depends also on your biases and on your religious beliefs, or on your all
Depends
the
on you.
yeah, it really depends on you. And but there's a lot of freedom in your dream. So there are things that you might see or hear that are going to be that are going to depend on your beliefs, but you have a lot of freedom. And once you, I think the one thing, like from my experience, you go through stages, and I've searched for them, and everyone has the same stages, which is really, really weird. Is that you first feel a vibration go throughout your body, and usually happens, let's say, if it ever happens to you, if you ever want to try it, put
Mhm.
an alarm at between 3 and 5 in the morning. For some reason, it works. I don't know why, but 3 and 5 in the morning, you wake up and you try to go back to sleep. You just wake up, stay awake for like a minute or two, and try to go back to sleep. But like thinking, keep your mind working. Try to think of something and try to put the intention on like going into a dream. You
Mm,
know how like sometimes before going into
that's
a dream,
awesome.
yeah, before going to sleep, sometimes you think of something, a story, and you hear voices and you see images, but you're like kind of in between the dream and reality.
Hmm.
And once you're in that stage where you're just okay, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna start controlling thing, and then you start. What happens at that stage? You feel a vibration that goes from your feet all the way to your head, and it's like, and it's like vibrating, 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 and then you hear like a bang, like boom, and then after what happens, a lot of people freak out at that stage when they feel the all shaky and the noise and all of that. It would trigger something that's gonna wake you up, and you're just like, okay, what the hell is going on? But if you let go, and I think the really the clue here is really letting go and like just trusting the process, and you're like, okay, I'm just going and relaxing. And if you relax, it's like, my god, it's pure. You're like all like in I mean, you're in
Land.
the
Yeah.
deep unconsciousness, but you're out there, you're awake. And I think a lot of like a lot of yogi or Buddhist people and all of that, like when they go into deep meditations, that what they're looking for is being conscious in your unconscious, and like just being alive and that at the same time. And it's, I think it's beautiful once you let go. And I'm not in that stage yet. A lot of times I freak out, and once you start freaking out, it's like a bad trip doing a
You
drug,
missed your
and then
chance.
yeah, and it's like it all go, and then you hear steps and like weird vibrations. And if you're like from one religious belief to another, you would see this or maybe like just watch a horror movie, and that's how you imagine like what fear looks like, and you're gonna see this creatures and all that. But it's I think it's all about like just
Harry
letting
Potter,
go.
man.
Yeah,
That one creature in Harry Potter that would become whatever you were afraid of.
yeah,
Not break.
exactly,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. um but yeah, I can't remember your question, but yeah, but
That was rad. I mean, if you think of it, I just hop in, but like uh, that sounds really cool to me. Like I can imagine like at least two scenarios that makes me think are really interesting is if I would choose to wake up, like obviously I'm going into this with an intention because I'm choosing to wake up and like I might have something in my brain. I'm like, I want to work through this problem in
hmm
my subconscious. And like, I want help in my subconscious from my subconscious and all these things and these deeper meanings and all that stuff. And I could also see like going in totally open and just being like, dude, just bring whatever I need to work on, like let's just do it, you know, like you approach this conversation, or like you say you're doing with a lot of the stuff, be like, yeah, because that's my conscious mind making the decision about the problem I think I need to work on. And there's that quote from Einstein about like you can't solve a problem from the same layer of consciousness that you like created the problem in, you
Mm,
know, like that. So it's like
yeah,
you're like, I'm gonna stay here and let's do this thing, but it's like
yeah.
like where if I go and open, there's so much more of a chance that I'm gonna see something that is like the brick 4 layers down from the thing that I thought was the problem. That's gonna be like, oh, if I like do this, then I'm gonna realize I really wanted a relationship with my mother. You know, like, and I want to have all these years leading up to that, where
Yeah.
like I guess that, and that'd be cool. You know,
That's a medicine. That should be prescribed. Just wake up, put an alarm, wake up middle of the night, and go back to
see what
sleep. And
happens.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I had um, crap. Sorry, what was I gonna say there? The I had similar. Well, actually, you didn't say, so I can't speak for that. Like, why you haven't done drugs? I didn't do any drugs for most of my life, and over a year ago now, I had the chance to and long like do some psychedelic stuff. And the long story short, like San Pedro, which is
Hmm.
called like grandfather, it's a cactus thing. Like
Hmm.
I tried it, and I ended up confronting like a big, like my resistance to it was sourced from an insecure place of like, because I do believe you can have all these experiences without the influence of stuff, but like I also believe that like I could probably go without food for a lot longer than I do, and I keep eating. Like I just had this big experience where I was like screaming in my head at all these people around me. It was like a group setting and like good intention and stuff of like, you don't need this, like you don't need this stuff, and like a little voice in my head, another part of me, part of me, like, why are you so mad about that? Like, why are you so? Oh, can you hear me?
Sorry,
Was yeah, yeah.
I just this yeah just had a call, so I had to
Okay,
put
cool.
a yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know where did we leave off.
Yeah, sorry. You were so you were talking about your experience with San Pedro, you said?
Yeah, I was just I was arguing really vehemently in my head about how like all these people around me didn't need this, and then another part of my psyche came in and was like, why are you so mad? Like why are you yelling? Yeah,
Oh
like
yeah.
that's a pretty insecure behavior. And what I got from it was just that like, oh, okay, like plant medicine, you know, I could say everything is just another tool, like, and it can be used or it cannot, and it's not wrong to, and I may or may not decide to again. And like I feel really pulled towards ayahuasca right now,
Hmm.
and I've never done it, and you know, for whatever reason, I feel like I want to. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, okay, like, and I'm more open to trusting that and trusting that as a part of my intuition instead of like being like, no, I'm a person that doesn't do drugs. You know,
Yeah.
like it's just
Oh,
as easy to get addicted to like identity in any direction,
oh
you know?
yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Is as addictive not to do drugs than to do them.
Addicted to abstinence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like
exactly. Yeah, I
just
mean,
something to put me higher than these people, you know, like
yeah, exactly. You can, as you're saying, it's a tool. And yeah, it's the same as me. Like I never say that's my identity. Like I don't do drugs. I see the
and
value.
that's why it was a problem for me, because it was like I thought some value was coming from that.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. No, yeah, I really see how much value there is in psychedelics and how sacred they are. And I would never go there if I don't like really feel the calling. And it's not there yet.
That's
And
beautiful.
yeah,
Yeah.
is it gonna come? Maybe, maybe not. But as long as it doesn't come, a lot of people unfortunately go there without the spiritual maturity to go through the experience. And I think there's like two results. It's either it would be like more of a, oh yeah, cool, I did psychedelics, I saw this, I felt that, da, da, da. And then like 2 days after they're back to whatever they're used to doing. And you have the other side where they go through like a deep parts of themselves that they have no idea about. They go like, what? And they get stuck, and not being stuck that they would never get out of it, but it's too much work to.
No processing skills.
Yeah, nothing. You have no maturity to be that deep in your unconscious. And usually when you do it without psychedelics, you go through phases and you go through a process, and you can be either work with a mentor or someone like who's been there before. He would like guide you and go with him, and he would show you like little corners. But if you just go there with nothing, okay, cool, that sounds like a cool idea, but that's tough.
How does that fit in with the you never confront something that you're not ready for idea?
Ah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's tricky. Well, I think I think whatever comes to us, I would still stick to this idea that whatever comes to us, we can deal with it, but you can avoid yourself a lot of trouble.
We can make it easier.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, I mean, like, doesn't mean that you can carry so much that you have to carry that weight all the time. And
Yeah.
if you can save yourself some weights, like, why not? I think it's um, we can make some choices, some decisions, but at the end of the day, if you went there so fast and got all that weight to carry, maybe that's why it was meant to be, and just try to get out of it. So maybe you would have never been there. And I feel like sometimes I feel that the universe is funny, and he like maybe like this person would have signs like to work on their shadows and like go deep and work on their unconscious, but they would never do it. Like, okay, don't want to do it, don't want to do it, go have fun with your friends, get some psychedelics, and they're like their mind like blown they're like blown away, and like, what the hell is
New
going on?
path.
Yeah. And because they maybe refuse like other, maybe it was the last resort. And I think we get these opportunities, and a lot of people like I think like my intuition is a lot of people get like life-threatening diseases and cancers, and a lot of things, a lot of diseases come from and dealt with small illnesses. And it's more like signs we're given little signs. Oh, your stomach hurts, your this
Well,
hurts, your
can
knee
you listen
hurts.
to your body? Yeah.
Yeah, and the more you ignore it, the more your body's gonna scream louder, like, okay, you gotta do something, and then pam, until they stop, and they have to stop working, relax a little
Or
bit
they
more.
literally get hit by a car. Like I've heard that story so many times. Like where the universe is like, look, dude, sit down. Like, now you can't move. Like, are you listening?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. So if you don't get the little whispering and little calls, it's gonna get louder and louder and louder until you hear it.
Yeah, but I think we're not taught to think that there's value in listening to ourselves. You know,
Mm,
like how it seems like you have to come to that conclusion yourself, or whatever. Like that, listening to yourself matters because or listening to your body, like that even more so. Like people talk about like listening to yourself maybe a little bit more than listening to your body,
mhm.
specifically as if your body's something separate. Like we're the medical model that most of us are working under or understanding doesn't even consider that what you're experiencing could be helping you or like teaching you something or like learning. It's like, how can I stop this? like um
Mm, yeah,
Actually, I have a question for you if you don't mind.
yeah, please.
What would you say to somebody that like uh just says that they're not intuitive? Like I'm yeah, just leave it at that. Like if they're like, I'm just not an intuitive person, like I don't know what you guys are talking about, like that doesn't, like I make decisions by, you know, gathering up the facts and
Science.
following the science and
Yeah,
putting
well, here,
the meaning hashtags in my posts.
yeah, yeah. I was that person, and here's
Yeah,
one thing
please
that,
tell me. I'd love to hear this story.
yeah, yeah. Well, my stories, I would like like, as I was saying, a little bit more stoic. Everything has to be like factual based, and not rely on anything that's not
Provable.
that's yeah, that you can't prove. And I would still have
Did you
like
feel stuff in your body then, or do you feel like you kind of like didn't? Like
I
you were kind
blocked, I
of,
blocked
you were numb.
everything. Yeah,
Okay. This
everything
is
is
really good.
numb. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just stopping everything, nothing flowing. Oh, like
Your energy feels so clear to me now. So this is cool. Like, yeah,
yeah.
let's write a script about your life real quick.
Well, yeah. So one thing that helped me is that when I started to explore it a little bit, and when I say that I started to explore it, it was the hit by a truck kind of thing, and I didn't have a choice because I was stuck in a paradigm of just like thinking logical and everything needs to mean whatever I'm doing, and I got through like a really painful depression, and getting out of it, I had the depression was the hit by a truck kind of thing, and I had to like really be with myself and being comfortable with all the discomfort
Slow down. Yeah.
and slow down, and took a big break from everything and getting out of it. So one thing that I realized, because I started to explore this intuition, and one thing that I realized that had such an effect on what I was doing is that the intuition is not something that like separate from fact or science or anything like that. It's like part of everything. And speaking of like decision making, I started to implement that in all the decisions that I'm making. So what I'm eating, where I'm going, which job I should take,
I
if I
love
should
this.
this or that. And what I was finding is that when I use the intuition, I'm actually using facts that are stored in my unconscious. And let's say I don't know, should I eat a carrot or an egg? And tap into my intuition. Oh, I feel like I should eat a carrot. Is it because there's like some magical thing and like me feeling the energy of the carrot? No, it's because I might have read like hundreds of pages about carrots and eggs in like maybe like 2 3 years ago. I can't tell you for a fact exactly what they contain in terms of minerals or vitamins or anything like that, but I can tell you for sure that my intuition knows what's in there and what my body needs and exactly what would be the best match right now. And that's one thing I would tell people that are not intuitive. It's not about some magical stuff that's gonna like open you new doors. No, it's like things that are already in your unconscious that you know, things that you've read, that you watch movies, you watch documentaries, and you have all this knowledge that is stored that you cannot use. But if you trust your gut, trust your intuition, man, it's can it can I think it can give you superpowers. Really, it can unlock a lot of knowledge that you have and that you can't use. Yeah.
That's a good point about that. Like it's sort of like that movie Limitless, where it's like, or the Matrix kind of stuff. Like I know kung fu now. Like you're like I've
Yeah.
seen. How many movies have I seen? That's just like
Ex-
stored somewhere in there.
yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And I think the wisdom in that is like sort of getting out of the way and like letting your brain and body like put all the pieces together to do that instead of trying to like stuff more information down its gullet. Well, I'm going to go do some more research about eggs and carrots, and it's like, oh, or maybe like you know enough right now to make a decision. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
just sit with it for a moment and like
Yeah.
figure this kind of stuff out. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I think that's helpful for guys too. I've found that not that women don't get locked in their heads too, and there's different energetic stuff about like I think it makes you sick to never listen to your intuition or your inner guide stuff like in one way or another like it comes through, but like men seem even less like open to the idea of making illogical decisions. Um, Has that been the experience that you've had in talking to people? I mean, like, I know the last guy you talked to, you guys ended up talking about intuition a lot in
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah, that's I've always been curious about this, and I'm still questioning myself like what's about the masculine that's like I think I'd rather go by masculine and feminine.
yeah, I'm down with that.
Yeah, but
Everybody has these energies in them, and you know,
yeah,
like you can be a masculine energy female, or
Yeah.
energy male, or whatever.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm wondering like why.
I just see so much suffering happening in like couples relationships because like it's like speaking two different languages and you don't like the way you interpret the world is different when you're like must be logic, must be
Mm,
feeling, and like not making either side wrong, but it's like trying to find out how they both have value, where they have the most value, and to me the most important thing, letting somebody speak up for themselves in the way that they perceive the world without turning it around and making it and making it wrong. like oh, that's interesting, honey, like you feel things differently than I feel it.
yeah.
What do you think about this? And you're like, instead of, I don't know, I guess being like, I don't see it that way. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. I
okay,
see.
just staring at each other here.
Yeah. But I think, like to answer your question, I think that like the masculine or the man, um, like they can't feel, and it's part of the masculine. And my what I think is that the masculine maybe the masculine is wounded, and that's like a way of defending themselves, and that's like being like affirmative and like science based, and that's like a way to like reinforce the masculine. I don't know if you've noticed, but um, I mean, there's a lot of backlashing for the masculine. Okay, there's a lot of things wrong, and that's like part of my personal experience as well. I like going from a boy to a man was a little bit painful for me with all the negative things you hear about men and like the masculine, like like all the
Yeah.
yeah, all the images we have, war, violence, I don't know, rape, all the things, and you're like, okay, should I embody the masculine, or and I think what happens is that like you kind of embody another masculine, and people, I find that people go two ways. They would either go to the extreme of the masculine they know in the media, that's like not in touch with their body and like more like a little bit more violence or anything like that, or avoid it, like 100% avoid it, and like just like stay with the feminine. And yeah, I think there's some wound in the masculine, which is why like people don't like embody it as a whole, and they're taking pieces from it. And yeah, what do you think?
It's such a shame that people have been made afraid to be strong, like, and or like the message of strength has gotten distorted as to like being externally driven or derived from, like, I'm strong because I lift 300 pounds is different than I feel strong. Like,
Mm,
I think there's like a somatic quality to that stuff, and it's been stripped away from. I think it seems like the ironic thing about identity politics is that it actually strips people of their identity. Like, it's like, oh, you are this, therefore you're a boy, therefore you're bad, and you're responsible for all the bad. Like, what like, what is somebody supposed to do with that? Like, that's not like, okay, so nothing I say or do can change it. So what's the point? So, okay, I guess I'll just do what everybody else tells me to do, and it's so messed up, and it's so like Jordan Peterson's spoken a lot to this sort of thing about how like men are looking for just a little guidance
mm-hmm.
nowadays, and he's like, it's like the um, a good podcast recently was Mark Manson, who wrote The Subtle Art of Giving a Fuck, and of not giving a fuck,
Yeah.
rather, and his other stuff, and is very prolific. And he was on Michaela Peterson's podcast with Jordan Peterson, and they briefly touched on like how their books are both in like the self-help realm, kind of, but like came out at different stages of like culture in the world and all these things. And how Manson himself is like, yeah, like I enjoy communicating this way, but I sort of have to couch these self-help pills in like cookie dough of like using a lot of profanity and like snide humor so that people
Mm,
can even like hear it. And then Jordan came out and was able to be very direct about get your shit together, like, do your stuff, like dad personality, all these things.
I need to listen to this.
And and also, but and they were saying how Jordan was asking about like if it ever gets tiresome for him to like constantly hear people say how it's helped them, because on the one side it's so beautiful to be like, oh my god, like I've helped so many people. You're also forced to confront that so many people needed help in these ways that feel like such a bare minimum of like guidance. And Manson was saying, yeah, like people would come to my, he doesn't do many speaking events, so people would come to his book tour and be like, what are all these bros doing here? Like really derisive towards men, like trying to expand themselves and like understand themselves better, which is why like so many men stop from trying to like explore feelings or like learn about themselves. They're like, well, my worth is from accomplishment and making money and banging chicks, or like whatever they're allowed to. And we learn from our parents by their example, not what they say. And it's the same thing, I'm sure, for culture. Like whatever culture you're exposed to in these curated bubbles or whatever, like if you're just watching like mainstream movies and TV and all this stuff, you keep getting this beaten into you that your worth comes from these things. No matter what somebody's saying, you're going to focus on what is happening. So I think experience, like that's the Buddhist quality of like your experience is all that matters. Like,
Oh yeah.
It doesn't matter what anybody else says. What are you actually experiencing right now? Can we get in touch with the sensory? Can we do all this stuff? And just to wrap that story up, and Jordan was reflecting that he's like, yeah, it's the worst thing. Like people are constantly just taking this gross stance towards men that like, like, why would you be here? You read books? Like you have muscles. That means you don't read books. Like what the fuck, dude? Like, and why try? And I guess if anybody is watching this and gets really interested in that, there is a specific Peterson speech about toxic masculinity that maybe I'll send you a link and you can share or not. I'll find it again, where he weaves storytelling in a way that you can hear him like start to cry talking about what happened to a friend of his, and he's just bringing that back to that powerful story about like what it is to be toxically masculine is often to divide yourself from yourself and be told that you're worthless, and and what are you supposed to do with it? And then it erupts in these really negative ways, and people need brotherhood and sisterhood. And I know that all my girlfriends and I are having conversations right now that we wish our significant others had like bands of brothers to rely on that they could talk to. And guys just don't have friends now. Like even worse than women do, and it blows my mind. You need one friend. Like get a friend, that you can talk to about anything. And maybe that's going to be painful at first, just like any new relationship where you're figuring that out, and like you push a little too hard and like you go a little too tough. But like if I could give people any advice, it'd be to learn to accept other people's boundaries, like respect their no, and that makes them feel safe to talk to you more. Man, I have to get going. I have a session.
I'm loving this. I'm sure we can go for hours. But I'm really digging this. I'm sure we're gonna have others, two, three. Well,
just want to say, like, congratulations on all the work you're doing and have done.
Thank you.
Awesome job.
Thank you. Appreciate it. You too. I'm really enjoying this. Well, I really love this. I'm sure there's a lot of things to get from this conversation.
I can't wait to meet me. Like maybe I'm gonna try lucid dreaming and see if I can meet myself and find my next path.
Yeah.
But I can still help people with this stuff for now, if anybody wants to.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Samantha, thank you so much. I really love this. What's the best place for people to find you? Instagram? Is there any?
Yeah. I don't even have a live website anymore right now.
Okay.
So Instagram is probably the best, and I'll get back to you within a couple of days if you send me a DM. and
Cool.
stuff. And
Cool.
trying not to get re-addicted to it after taking a break a little while ago.
Yeah.
No notifications.
Yeah. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks. That's great. All right. Take care.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye bye.